All right, so it is time to discuss NFL Week 17 power rankings. Now, remember, these are my power rankings based off of how I see these teams in this moment going into Week 17, so let's just get into it. Coming in at number 10, I have the Miami Dolphins. And the only reason why they're there is because all the other teams that could have been on this list, like the Patriots and the Chargers, they lost. And I just got to give this courtesy to the Miami Dolphins. They've won 7 games in a row. Their defense is absolutely dominant. Tua isn't asked to do very much because he really doesn't have to. They got 8 sacks against the Saints, made Ian Brook look even worse than just a starting rookie quarterback. They made him look really, really bad. Just as a whole, the Miami Dolphins team, their defense is great. Tua doesn't really have to do much. He does have that weekly turnover, which is really unfortunate because I really like Tua. I still believe in him, and it might have to do something with that Chiefs game from a few years ago. But Miami, 7 games in a row, have a big game against the Titans next week, which I am rooting for the Dolphins to win that game because that helps the Chiefs if the Chiefs can handle their business against the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll get to the Chiefs here in a little bit. But just Miami as a whole, this is a courtesy. You got to respect 7 wins in a row. And just because New England, they've lost against Indianapolis and Buffalo, the Chargers lost to the Chiefs, then they lost to the Texans. I got to give this courtesy to the Miami Dolphins. Coming in at number 9, I have the Tennessee Titans. They beat the 49ers. And some people may think I have them a little bit too high, which, I mean, I respect that and I understand that. And they may not even win their division. Let's be honest. They may not win their division because of just how injured they have been. But that second half performance that the Tennessee Titans had was just absolutely amazing. Now, their play calling in that entire game wasn't particularly good. They needed to abandon the run much sooner than what they did. But once A.J. Brown got going, it was literally impossible to stop. Every single third down became third down and A.J. Brown. It was just absolutely beautiful to watch. Like I mentioned, they do play the Miami Dolphins. I think it's a much bigger game than we thought even a couple weeks ago. It's a huge game for both of these teams. Tennessee desperately needs this, not only for their division hopes, but for their number 1 seed hopes. It's going to be a really fun game, which is really weird to see from a Tennessee team that is fairly and really injured, and a Miami team, which we had absolutely no hope to go with going into the season. Tennessee, they play Miami, they play Houston, and then you look at the Colts, who they have left. They have the Vegas Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if Tennessee happens to drop one of these games, I think the Colts will win out, and I think the Colts have a chance at winning their division. But you got to give credit to the Tennessee Titans. They're finding ways to win with all these injuries. It may not be beautiful. It may not be how I like it. I still think Ryan Tannehill is reverting back to his Miami Dolphins days. But you got to respect Tennessee, what they're doing. That second half, absolutely amazing. And I have the Tennessee Titans at number 9. At number 8, maybe a little bit low, I have the Cincinnati Bengals. And the only reason why they're not higher is because they're a really hit or miss. But good God, that performance by Joe Burrow and that entire Bengals offense was just one of the most impressive games that I have seen in a long time, albeit against a really beat-up Ravens secondary. I get that. It's still the NFL. It's late in the season. All these teams are injured. But 525 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, everybody was pitching in. Even Joe Mixon in the passing game was just absolutely unbelievable. He even rushed for a handful of yards, which would look beautiful on the stat lines. This Bengals offense, very hit or miss, but when they're on point, this Bengals offense, I think, is one of the best offenses in the NFL. Nearly impossible to stop. They look good. I'm a huge fan of Joe Burrow. I'm a huge fan of everything that they're doing offensively. I think their offensive line needs a tad bit better of a work, in my opinion, to protect Joe Burrow. That might be a bit of a hot take. I'm just saying a little bit better protection for Joe Burrow. Their defense, they did give up over 300 yards passing, and they did give up 3 touchdowns against a beat-up Ravens team. That might be a bit of an issue against Kansas City because 21 points against a beat-up Ravens team might translate to, about 35, 42, 49 points against the Chiefs, which then will become a shootout between Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, which I'm all for it. If you're not in for a Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes shootout, I don't know what you're in for, but that would be a beautiful, magical sight to see. And just because of that great performance by Joe Burrow, I have them at number 8. At number 7, I have the Indianapolis Colts. The Colts are, for how slowly they started this season, they have slowly become a very, very good football team. They beat New England, they beat Arizona. Like I mentioned earlier, they had the Vegas Raiders and the Jacksonville Jaguars, which I think these games are completely winnable for the Colts. I think they're going to make the playoffs. I think they really are. I think they're going to win out. They play Vegas next. I don't think it's much competition that they have coming up. No disrespect to those other 2 teams, but completely disrespect to the Raiders because I don't like them. But like I mentioned earlier, they do need Tennessee to drop one of these remaining games, which again, I think the Titans will lose to the Dolphins. But that's just my early based off of what I've seen this weekend, and just because I'm really high on the Dolphins, because why not? I'm a Chiefs fan. Root for the Dolphins. Let's go. But if you look at the Indianapolis Colts, you got to respect that run game. You got to respect that offensive line, who that offensive line was completely shorthanded. I think they were starting had four completely different people on that offensive line that don't usually play. They were down 4 starters at one point in that game. They had 1 starter left in that game. Carson Wentz made some great throws. Their defense, unbelievable. Only gave up 16 points against a Cardinals team that's very, very good, which has kind of been in the toilet recently. Hasn't looked particularly well recently. But just that run game, the way the offensive line has been able to play, even with all the injuries, the way the Colts have just rebounded their entire season, a chance to win their division. Very impressive team. And I have the Colts at number 7. Coming in at number 6 might be a little bit low, but I wasn't necessarily impressed with their win, is the Los Angeles Rams. Matthew Stafford was fairly bad in this game. Did not look good whatsoever. 3 interceptions, all of them his fault. Their defense and their special teams is what really won this game, in my opinion. Sony Michel once again had a great running game. And then you have Cam Akers, who's coming off the IR way sooner than many people expected after that Achilles injury. But I have the Rams at number 6 just because I don't like the way the offense played in that game. I don't. And if this Matthew Stafford shows up in the playoffs, it's going to be a lot of trouble for the Rams. They have every piece in place to be a great football team. They really, really do. They have a run game. They have an offensive line, albeit their best offensive lineman was out in this game. They have the receiving core, Cooper Kupp, Van Jefferson, OBJ. They have the defense, Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller. They have Floyd in there. They have the pieces to win a Super Bowl. And how bad it would be if Matthew Stafford is the reason why the Rams aren't living up to their potential. That would really stink. And Matthew Stafford, I don't think has played particularly well the last couple of weeks. I think this team is its team is flawed. Very, very flawed. They have a lot of work they have to do. Now, they do face Baltimore in a pretty big game for both of these. It's a desperation game for the Baltimore Ravens because the Rams are going to get their absolute best shot. The Rams want to win their division really, really bad. So I think the Rams are going to bring their best shot. And I think the Rams have a lot of things to work on. I still don't think they should drop out of the top 10. That's not a thing. They're definitely a top 10 team. I just think they have a lot of things to work on, and Matthew Stafford did not look particularly well against the Vikings. Coming in at number 4, I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, again, this team might be a little bit low to some, but at the same time, they got shut out against the Saints, and then they lost a whole bunch of good players. They lost Mike Evans, Chris Godwin. They lost a lot of good players and a lot of key players on their offense. They were playing with a whole bunch of nobodies. Looked really good against the Panthers. I mean, everybody looks good against the Panthers. They have no idea who their starting quarterback's going to be. They beat them 32-6. They finally clinched their division. So the Buccaneers as a whole, they finally got that off their back. They played the Jets and the Panthers again, which I think, the Buccaneers are going to win out. There's no way I see them not winning out. They're playing the Jets, who, they're improving every week, but it's still the Jets. They still stink. And then you have the Panthers again, who they just beat, who have no idea what they're doing with their quarterback situation. I think the number 1 seed for them is kind of out of reach, but just the way that they were able to win that game with a whole bunch of backups, a whole bunch of guys that a lot of us have probably never heard of unless you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan. That was a really good win for them, a win that they really, really needed, especially with all those injuries down. But I think the injuries is what's going to hold them back right now. Too many injuries. Everybody's dealing with injuries, but there's just too many injuries to key guys that I think is going to hurt the Buccaneers the rest of their season and what might hold them back in the playoffs. But again, we say that for some reason we always bet against Tom Brady, and somehow he pulls a rabbit out of his hat and ends up winning the Super Bowl. So take everything what I just said as not fact whatsoever, and the Buccaneers are probably winning the Super Bowl because I said that. At number 3, we have the Dallas Cowboys. That was a complete clowning that they did against the Washington football team. That is what the Cowboys needed to look like all year long. And everybody loves to hate on the Cowboys, me included, but that is what we expected the Cowboys to look like all year long. And now they have Arizona and Philadelphia coming up. Those are not gimme games. They are not gimme games. They clinched the NFC East, yes, but those 2 games are not gimme games because the Cardinals fighting for their lives. The Eagles, they're fighting to make the playoffs, and those 2 teams are going to get their best shot. They're going to give their best shot to the Cowboys. Those are going to be really good football games. The Cardinals, desperate. Philadelphia, playoff hopes alive. But that game against Washington, everything that we expect from the Cowboys all year. Offense, elite. Defense, elite. Special teams, elite. Everything about this game this is what we expected from the Cowboys all year long. They finally showed up. They finally showed it. Dak Prescott, an amazing first half, over 300 yards and I think 4 touchdowns in the first half. The Cowboys finally got back on track after a slump that they were in. Something that me, as a Chiefs fan, I completely understand. We went through that ourselves. We're back on track. But this is what we expected from the Cowboys all season. Are they going to be a dangerous team? I don't know. They have Mike McCarthy as their head coach, but I think the best Mike McCarthy is the Mike McCarthy who just completely stays out of the way of this team and just lets this team play. Because when this team plays and just goes out and they didn't have any stress in this game. They really didn't. They clinched the division before they even started this game, so I feel like they can just play free, loose, and if this is the Cowboys now know what they are, and if they continue to play free, loose, their brand of football, what they want to do, I think this team might be scary, may not be scary. Again, Mike McCarthy, if he gets in the way, is what scares me about the Cowboys possibly losing. But I'm kind of just rambling at this point. We have the Cowboys at number 3. Number 1 and 2 is going to be controversial to some people, but at number 2, I have the Green Bay Packers. Now, you're going to ask, why are the Green Bay Packers at number 2 and not number 1? They have Aaron Rodgers, who's possibly an MVP. I understand that completely. What if their offense is great? Yes, I get it. Their offense is great. Why are they not number 1? Their defense. Their defense has been a complete letdown the last couple of weeks. Their run defense was absolutely atrocious against the Cleveland Browns. Now, I think they had Kenny Clark out of this game. So that's definitely a huge hit for the Green Bay Packers when they have a key guy like that out. But again, they've already clinched their division. I don't want to overreact too much. They might be just walking through the rest of the season, or the rest of this regular season. They kind of just need to win one more game. They're probably going to clinch the number 1 seed, rest everybody against the Lions in week 18. They play Minnesota coming up, which Minnesota is completely desperate right now because of their loss that they had against the Rams. So I have the Packers at number 2, not because of their offense, but just simply because their defense has really struggled the last couple weeks to close out games between the Ravens and the Browns. And it's no hate against the Packers. I don't hate them. I still think they're I think they're the second best football team in the NFL. But if you look at number 1, you got the Chiefs. I mean, this is a completely biased pick, but they just beat down the Steelers 36-10. They clinched the AFC West. They've won 8 straight games after starting 3-4. They are playing the Bengals this week, which I talked about this game earlier. It's going to be a complete awesome game. It's going to be a chance of a complete shootout. These teams are going to bring their best shots. These offenses are explosive. But like, the Chiefs have won 8 games in a row. They went from a team that was broken to people saying they're not going to make the playoffs to just rallying and just playing. Honestly, this is the best Chiefs team that we've had with Patrick Mahomes at the quarterback. Now, this may even be a hot take for Chiefs fans. This is the best team the Chiefs have had since Patrick Mahomes was there. Now, really quick, let me explain. You have the defense, the best Chiefs defense that I've seen in years. Yes, the defense was bad the first few weeks. Once this Chiefs defense got right, they have been just a dominating defense. They're not giving up points. The most they've given up was against the Chargers, 28 points. Fine. It was a Thursday night football game, short week. The Chiefs were missing players, and Mahomes just pulled an MVP level performance in the fourth quarter and overtime. So the defense as a whole, they're not giving up points. Mahomes is finally learning to take what the defense is giving him, and ever since he's learned how to do that, the Chiefs they may not be putting up a lot of points, but they're winning the games. The defense is just shutting down opponents. Special teams is playing great. Byron Pringle stepped up without Travis Kelce. I mean, what's there to say? I think the Chiefs have finally formed into an all-around great football team. I think I want to see the Chiefs Packers in the Super Bowl so badly. This is a matchup that I really wanted to see last year, really badly. But I just think right now the Chiefs, the way they're playing, Mahomes in the conversation for MVP, even though it's a long shot, Everything the Chiefs are doing offensively, defensively, special teams, I think this team is right. I think they got hot at the right time. I think even during their winning streak, they weren't looking like the Chiefs that we used to know and love. But now they've hit it 2 games before the end of the season. They play Cincinnati. We're rooting for the Miami Dolphins again, the second time in like 3 years that we're rooting for the Miami Dolphins. So it's going to be an awesome game. I'm really happy to see where the Chiefs are at. This is a complete bias thing. I get it, but I'm a Chiefs fan. So you guys are going to have to learn to deal with me putting Kansas City at number 1. Those are my power rankings for NFL Week 17. Leave your power rankings down below of where you have these teams rank, or you may have a team that I don't have in the top 10 in your top 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I'll see you in